So do you mind, for the sake of our audience, give them an introduction of who you are, what you do, where you're currently at, please?
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I know you are still undergrad, and yeah, but I'm not too senior than you. Yeah. I'm Aochen, so I'm currently working as a research assistant at Synteraction lab in City University of Hong Kong. So I do my bachelor's degree in China and do my master's degree in UCLA America, and then I came to Hong Kong and work as a research assistant since um, August 2023 until then. Yeah, so um, I'd like to see what my research is about AR and VR, and it's ubiquitous computing. Yeah, and it's of course this combination with human-computer interaction. Yeah, so that's my basic, yes, that's my basic situation, and I think, yeah, so maybe I just graduate for my bachelor on 2021, so I'm not too senior to you. I think that from my experience, you can learn about what a junior researcher can think of something, yeah, unlike Tanner or some other people or some PhD candidates that they are nearly to defend their PhD. Yeah, I think that can maybe, yeah, I think William's idea is very good. So he has different researchers from different level with different experience. Yeah, so we hope to let you know that how people think. Maybe it's for some advisor, and for some, yeah, they have a big vision, they have a big map, they have a big a big idea they want to do. But maybe for some junior researcher, we are still sometimes struggling, right? We have the we are nervous, and we feel maybe sometimes feel poor. We feel poor, yeah, and yeah. So I'd like to so yeah, I think maybe I speak too much. So I hope that during the interview I can let you know what the research is really, how it looks like, maybe for you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, just now you've already shared some tips you give to the junior researchers. I'm going to make this question, I'm going to explicit ask you now. What do you think, okay, based on your own experience and on your observation of other people as they are beginning their research journey, what do you think are some of the most common mistakes, common pitfalls that new researchers are making when they just start like their first project?
Okay, so I'm not sure how the situation is in Singapore, but at least I'm very sure that one thing in Chinese students, or like at least in mainland China students, that students can now distinguish what means engineer and what means research. So this, because in some class that they think maybe the research is just like the course project or something. Well, I'm not saying that the course project is not important, but the course project is something that let you to use the skills the professor show you and try to do something you like, or comprehensively to combine all you have learned to make something. Well, it's sometimes maybe difficult. I know it's complex for your undergrad, but during these things, it's not research. You should not. Yeah, I know many students will argue that. Okay, so I have writing what code, and I use what hardware, and I struggle how many nights. Right, you are correct. But here is the meaning that this is something engineering difficulty. So that means what is research? So research means that you don't know what exactly is. So from the time you decided that, okay, so the course project, for example, we'd like to make a for example, okay, for my own example, during my undergrad, I remember a course project is like we need to use any any coding language you like, MATLAB, C++, anything, to make like the map, like maps. That means that a map for our campus, and you can select A and B, and it can show you the shortest path to there. Yeah, right. It's quite like some Google Maps, yes, but for your own school. Yeah. So what I want to say here is that it's still complex, at least for the junior undergrad. You need to learn some the algorithm for path searching. You need to learn how to make the path visualization as the front end, right? But you know what you want, right? You know how it should be like. You know that such map is existing. You know that such thing can be done. So that's not research. That's something called engineer. That's something called engineering. Well, what research means that you don't know what it really look like. You don't know how it looks like. Maybe this is the first one, the first technique. Maybe it's very easy, but you are the first. Or maybe you are the best. That means previous people, for example, as my work in this MobileHCI. This work, that means there are somebody use gates before, but you are the first that using such reflexive gates in VR. Previously, nobody know how it will be. Yeah, maybe somebody used that in flat screen, in a computer, in a PC, and to use that. But there exactly no such things previously. So before you make that, no one know how it looks like. No one know if it works. No one know if it has a bias authentication or something. That's something unknown. So yeah, maybe the coding is not very long, but it's still new. Yeah. So I think the first thing you need to know is about this. So yeah. So learn what is existing, what is unknown, and so yeah. Every time ask yourself if this is something called engineering or something called research. If you, for example, I know that I'm not sure how many of you have the experience to join a lab and work with professor, but professor are always busy. So yeah, during my beginning time I have every question. For example, I'm not sure how to maybe configure a PCB. I'd like to ask professor how to do it, but that's stupid. Not stupid, but kind of naive, So because this is something called engineering problem. Professor can do it. What professor can help you is that they tell you, yeah, of course this is unknown, but professor has more experience. They are more expertise in such area. They like an older that know the way, maybe have more experience than you. So they can have a sense of, okay, maybe there are something. So this is what professor can help you. But if you cannot configure a PCB, if you cannot write in some code, that should be your own problem. That's not what professor can help you. That should be you learn yourself and you try to improve yourself. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, it's very important. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, you share a lot about what you think are the mistakes made by especially the mainland Chinese students.
Yeah.
Next up, can I ask you to share about, are there any specific instance, such as a person, a book, maybe a project, or maybe an event, any specific instance you could think of that sort of motivates you to do research?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think this quite like a question many advisor, many professor, when they do interview, they like to ask for the applicant. Yeah, the question is, why PhD, right? So, PhD is always it's always in China we call 赌博 right? So 赌博 它的谐音是赌博 right? You take risk because when you are doing it means that when you do PhD you are like gambling. So it means that you are not sure what will happen. You will always face unknown, and you will always maybe stressed, right? Maybe nervous. And why so many people do that? So yeah, this question has really, because from my undergrad, I think many people ask me, and at that time I can't exactly answer that question. But now I think I have some thinking. Yeah, but I'm still, this question, I'm not sure how many of you have this experience. Like my father, since my 6 years old, he always asked me a question: why do you study? Why do you learn? Right? I noticed that, wow, somebody can be called doctor. Wow, others can just be Mr., Mrs., right? So someone has the privilege to be doctor. Wow, that's the first time I know that doctor may not be the doctor in hospital. I know someone outside hospital, they are also doctor. Okay, I think that's a privilege, that's cool. Okay, so everyone is Mr. Oh, you are doctor. Okay. Okay, so I feel really, that's something maybe good. So, but later, I sometimes feel that, but now, I think that when I do something and I feel some difficulty, I really, in 2022, I have applied for PhD. Well, because at that time I didn't have any publication, and I didn't, really don't know quite well what research is about, and but so I have been rejected by all PhD program. So at that time, at one time I think that, maybe I'm not qualified for a PhD. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, because I know that PhD is not the bachelor, right? So everyone has one, and everyone can go to university, and no matter if it's good or not good, but anyone, I think they can finish a bachelor. Yeah, so PhD itself is a privilege. Not everyone can do that. Okay, so but for now, what makes me feel interesting is actually it's after the ChatGPT. That ChatGPT is really make me think that, okay, what people can do. So ChatGPT seems that AI, they have shown that they do their best, can learn what people have, right? So they can read the paper maybe 1,000 speed than you, that 1,000 faster than you. So everything you don't know, you can ask him. Everything you feel confused, but you can let it help you. But during that time, I noticed that ChatGPT, there are some problems. That first, it don't have any logic. It cannot think by themselves. They cannot. That means if human don't know something, ChatGPT don't know. It never know, because it can only learn from our previous work. Okay, and the second thing is that ChatGPT can really replace something. That means, I'm not sure if I know you are still junior, but I'm not sure if you have any internship in some company or somewhere. You will notice that there are many positions that they are just doing something repeatedly every day. This is just something that is. So for example, I fill a form every day. It's just like this. So it's just like repeat. So there is no difference with the cleaner or something. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that cleaner is low or something. I'm saying that you do is really just something repeatedly, and ChatGPT can really replace you. That's just some, because previously people said that, oh, if you are in office, you will not be replaced. But if you are a worker, that you will be replaced by the robot. But now ChatGPT tell you that you are not safe in the office. You can also be replaced. So I began to think that, okay, so what we cannot do, what ChatGPT or what AI cannot do. So yeah, let's come back. It has not logic, and it cannot know what we don't know. So that's really about what PhD is doing. PhD, like I said previously, that PhD is they are conducting something people really don't know. They are exploring. They are exploring something unknown. They don't know what this will happen. What maybe some during the experiment, maybe they don't know what's good or what's bad will be generated. So that's what's your value. You are doing something that you cannot be replaced by AI, and that make me feel that, yeah, I'm valuable. I'm valuable compared to AI. I'm not at least I know I'm safe from AI, right? At least I know that AI cannot replace me now. Maybe 10 years later I will also be replaced, but at least not now, right? So it will help you feel an achievement, I like to say. So I know that I'm not sure how about you, but somebody they are excited about money, right? They make the money makes them happy, but there are somebody that's what can trigger them is something called achievement. That means you have do something. That means no matter you have done a startup, no matter you have maybe do a PhD, no matter if you have win a scholarship or if you have maybe just win a hackathon, that achievement is something drive you, right? So yeah, I think like so currently I like to answer this question is that what you do as a researcher, you can generate something new, and this new things is really help people, and this will give you an achievement feel. Yeah, that's maybe a little bit longer, yeah, because I talk a lot about my children, my I mean when I was a kid, yeah.
Actually, I want to go in a little bit deeper to what you just shared, which I think was really, really interesting. It seems like your motivation for maybe not research, but your motivation for studying has changed since when you were young compared to where you are now.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling us a little bit more about what has changed and what do you think, or rather, why do you think it's changed?
I think that I'm someone. So what has changed? Okay, we first need to change. What we first? Yeah. So firstly, you need to have understanding about the thing. You can get you need to learn about that. You need to know about it, because academic is also something that has its own rule under its own law. So you need to, because I think that for everyone, I know especially for your junior undergrad, that you learn about the science, you learn about the professor. You think that they are very high end, right? You think that they are appear in the TV. The new technology appears in the headlines, and they seem to change the world every day. But yeah, actually, of course it's not. If you change it every day, we should go to Mars now, right? So yeah, so firstly, you need to really know how academic works. You need to know about that. So during these years, so firstly, I know that okay, how research works and how the researcher works, and also what researchers like. They are also normal people. They are not. I mean, they are not every researcher, they are not Newton, you know, they are not Newton, they are not Einstein. So they are not changing world every day, but they have to do that because they need funding. You know, so you need to do this, but as you undergrad, you may still not have this opportunity to observe how they do what they do every day. So you need to I think so to explain my change, I first need to explain that. So what I observed, what I know is the basic that change what your motivation. Okay. So when we're young, when we're kids, we think that, oh, it's something far away from me. It's something, but it's like a dream. Oh, I want to be a scientist. I want to change the world, right? Yeah, that's good. But when we grow up, I think I have a period like, firstly, because when we during our education, we know that, oh, the researchers are very good, and they are very hard working, and they are very clever, they change the world. And then when you do something and you face some difficulty, and you sometimes maybe you notice that, oh, something, oh, it's not so magic as they claimed. It's not works as you think. It's just maybe just a demo, maybe just it maybe just work in their own video. They may not work in other scenario. Okay, so at that time there is a time that you feel down, you feel depressed about this. You think they are liars. You think that, oh, they are just something. Oh, maybe just something. Yeah, they overclaim everything. But over that, when you do more, you will notice that, yeah, if they have overclaim, for example, if they have done 100 and they overclaim it to 200, at least the 100 part, it is useful, it is meaningful. So we need to know that. So I'd like to suggest is you should, because I know NUS is a very good it's a very good university, and there are many faculties. So as a student, you should try, if you really want to do research. I know many students may just want to find a job, right? So if you really want to do research, you should first observe. Yeah, maybe not join every meeting. Maybe you don't have a project for you, but you can follow them. You can just observe them and then to see what they do. And so during this, you will notice that everything is changed, but not change the world. But every single point is still meaningful, and we humans are grew up like this, right? So we didn't change the world one day. It didn't like, okay, Newton was triggered by the apple, and then everything changed. No, that's not this, right? Newton has been triggered by the apple, then we go to some first, I don't know how, first industrial evolution, right? I'm not sure 工业革命, how to say that in English, because my native language is Chinese. So it's still and then we people going through the first war, second war, and then we have such modern things, and we have computers, right? We can see, but we cannot say that for every day we see, it's still similar to yesterday. But if you take 10 years, maybe 5 years, you retrieve that, you will see that our life has been changed. But so maybe 10 years ago, this year is 2024, so 10 years, 2014, what I'm not sure what you do now, what you do at that time. So in 2014, I'm in junior high school. Just finished my junior high school. At that time, I still didn't have a smartphone at that time, and Yeah, I'm not saying iPhone is not invented, but I mean I don't have. Yeah, so yeah, I mean that to change your motivation is that what you observe, but what's not changed should always be that what you want and what drive you. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think we have time for maybe one last question. If I were to ask you to give one tip, just one small tip, to students who are beginning their new research journey, what is that one small tip you will give them?
I think it seems like I have already mentioned a lot during the previous
So this
question.
is something I want to include in the vlog, but like in a much more concise version.
Okay.
Just one small tip you want to give.
Yeah, just one tip that should be. Maybe let me think. Because I only have one tip. Okay, so you should. One tip is that don't think professor and other PhD students or other master students, don't think they are God. Don't think they are some game changer. They are normal people. But what research how research works is a pattern that is also like a factory, but not a quite good factory. So first observe them and see how they work. Don't think that they are just doing some tedious work. They are just doing some boring work. They are not so magic as I think. Yeah, that's just life. So yeah, observe them, follow them, and then try to be them. Yeah, that if you really don't do research, that's I think. Yeah, as a junior undergrad, first, yeah, follow the 3 steps. Follow them, observe them, follow them, and maybe not try to be them, but to extract what's really useful for you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Again, could you please give our audiences a short introduction of who you are, what you do, and where do you study?
Yeah, hi. I am Judy. My full name is Junhan. I am a 5th year PhD student at the University of Washington. And my advisor is Jacob Wobbrock. I work on human-computer interaction, accessibility, situation awareness, adaptive interfaces, etc. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so I understand that this is a very exciting moment for you because you've just won the Best Paper Award.
Can you take that out of the conversation?
Why? But this is really the culmination of your hard work, really, as getting a Best Paper Award.
Thank you.
So the main focus of this question is, do you mind sharing with the students what happened throughout this journey, maybe for this particular paper? Do you mind sharing the ups and downs of your personal journey when working on this paper from start to finish?
For this particular paper, like Jake said, it went through a lot of rounds of rejections. So we got 3 rejections in a row, and it took me about a little close to 2 years to finally get this in from when I first submitted it. A lot of iterations, a lot of added components to the paper, a lot of kind of work improvements in between. So so it's a long journey. Like Jake always said, hanging there, it might sound like just simple, straightforward, but it's kind of powerful and actually makes sense up to this point. But I don't think the kind of research work is determined by the result of it, whether or not you get a best paper. The fact that it's finally submitted and accepted somewhere, you get the good work done, and those things are working. That's the kind of main purpose of research. So even if I don't get a best paper today, it doesn't diminish the value of the work I do. So it's really about research. Over these years of rejections, I got to realize you got to really enjoy the research part of it, not the result part of it, to really enjoy your PhD journey. It's about doing the work, and if you enjoy doing the work, and even it gets rejected, you learn something from it, and you do better research, and you truly enjoy the process, and it will finally end up somewhere. So that's my takeaway from it, yeah. And if you really focus on the result and say, if I don't get a best paper today, my life is just damn, you're not gonna enjoy it.
I couldn't agree more with what you just said. Now, do you mind sharing with us what is the one particular mistake or pitfall that you made when you first started your research journey? And if you could do it all over again, how would you resolve it or maybe alleviate the problem and that issue?
I think it's the same like I just said, like enjoy the process, not focusing on the results. Like in my first couple of years, I was trying to compare myself against my peers, the people who are like 1 or 2 years above me, trying to follow their trades. Like they get one paper published in this year, one paper published in that year. They have like 4 papers up to which year. I was really following that count on papers and feel like I'm like way behind or something, that I'm doing really bad in research. And for a certain period of time, I lost interest in what I was doing, and I got really discouraged by those results. So if I were to do it again, I would just really enjoy the process. Like just, it's true, like it will end up somewhere. Like people always say that and you don't believe them in your first couple of years. Like you're just not like, my life will be damned if I don't get into a top tier conference or something. But all the work will just end up somewhere.
Do you mind sharing, I'm just wondering, is there like a particular person, a particular book, a particular paper, or is there specific activities that sort of sustain you through your difficult moments? As you shared just now, at the beginning, like it's really difficult to transition from this mental model of comparing results to enjoying the process. So are there any specific instances, that it be a person, an object, or a project that kind of sustained you and motivated you to successfully transition into the state that you're in now?
Well, I think it's more like an incremental process. It's not like all at once I come to realize this truth or whatever. It's more like with each rejection you get more used to it. And at one point Jake was like, you're not used to it just because you haven't got enough rejections. Or I don't exactly remember who told me. Maybe it was Jake, maybe it was some other like collaborators or something. But essentially, like, the reality is that like you get a lot of rejections and very few acceptances, and just trying to live with the fact, I don't know, like just over the time, yeah.
Still, it's true that failure is the mother of success.
I know, like it's easy to say, like we all know that, but like it's easy to say, but once the rejection really comes in your face, it's really hard to, like at that one moment you feel like, oh, I did so badly. But it's not like, even with like Jake, he has such like a CV, a full list of research papers and stuff, and there were like the amount of rejections just multiplies by that number. So yeah.
So really focusing on, because the thing is, I think one thing about this is that the result is a lot more visible compared to the process one has to go through to achieve the results.
Yeah, people don't talk about rejections a lot, which I think we should, which is why like I'm saying like I got rejected 3 times and each one was a really brutal rejection. And it's not about you. A lot of times it's about like the timing, the luck, like there happened to be this one place for you, so.
And so just now you shared about how your family members sort of help you perhaps move out of the difficult periods and sort of buffer the setbacks you experience in your research journey. Do you mind sharing more about the role family or friends or close members to you, the role they play in this collaborative journey of yours to help to grow as a researcher?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people have been talking about like support networks, so it's not always just one person or like one group of people that you go to, but you go to different people at different times, at different occasions. Like go to my mom for crying, and then like my friends to just like shit talk about things we don't like. So it's really like a support network. Like you stay connected with the people, you go to conferences, you talk to new friends, you talk to your advisor, your research cohort, your PhD friends, your family, all of those. So I think they all love you and they're gonna provide the support you need at some point. So just, yeah.
As a researcher, do you believe in work-life balance? And if yes, like what are your go-to strategy to balance your work and your personal life?
Okay, it's a bad timing to ask me these questions. It's almost like asking me the research questions before this paper gets published. So if you ask me whether I believe it or not, yes, I believe it exists somewhere. It just never happened on me. I think ideally people should figure out a way to like just be really strict about like what time you should be working on, what time you should not, and not to sacrifice your sleep time and your health for that. But I mean, I was not doing great. I stayed up until very late all the time. Much less now, but still it affected my health certainly, so I wouldn't recommend that. But people kept saying that, so I don't have good advice on that, to be honest. I'm still struggling on that myself too.
But that's possibly also because of the fact that right now you're doing a PhD and there's like a time cap for how much work you need to sort of publish before you can graduate, right? But after this period, maybe you wouldn't be.
It's going to be harder. If you're a tenure track assistant professor, you're going to have like exponentially more pressure, stress than a PhD student. So, and after tenure, probably a little better, but be prepared, you're still going to have quite a few years if you want to stay in academia and do that job. So it's definitely like, I'm pretty sure if you ask any tenure track assistant professor, like whether it's more work in their job versus their PhD, they would say PhD is definitely a lot easier.
Okay, and okay, for the next question, you can tell me if you're not comfortable with this question, but I'm just wondering, do you mind sharing with the students, because I believe many of the students will be international students who are studying overseas for the first time. So do you mind sharing a little bit of your experience when you first sort of go to a new country for tertiary education, and how do you transition into a new environment?
I mean, in my case, I was lucky enough I could separate those concerns because I came here for undergrad, and then I went on and did a PhD, like entered the PhD program. So like all of those transitional periods were during my undergrad, which like the student cohort are even closer than like PhD or master communities. So it wasn't too much of a big issue. You just stay open and participate in those activities and stay connected with your friends. That was all of it. But yeah, I would say before I came to the US, I thought like your accent, how well you speak English was a big deal. But really, after I've seen so many Chinese researchers here, it doesn't matter at all. Like it's all about you are brave enough to speak out, to connect with people, to tell them what you do, and be clear about what you're working on. And like when you communicate with people, just make those points. And it really doesn't matter like what kind of language or accent or the grammar or anything. It doesn't matter at all.
Great. And maybe just for this last question, if I were to ask you to give one tip to students who are just beginning their research career, what is that one tip you would give them?
Think of what your goal is. Like if you want to do research or if you want to do a PhD, what do you want to get out of it? Is it the intellectual process? Is it the kind of PhD degree, like doctor's title you're getting? Is it the kind of academic job you're targeting? Is it some specific industry positions that you're interested in doing? I think the different goals lead to really different kind of actions you can take during the PhD to get you ready for it. And I think it would be nice to just know what your goal is before you start. It's okay if you don't know, but like if you know what you truly want to get out of a PhD journey, I think probably things would be a little easier.
And am I right to assume that maybe you're aiming for more like a faculty position and more like the intellectual process of doing a PhD?
To be honest, which is why I say like I don't know exactly what position I want to go for. Like the kind of purpose I wanted to to apply for PhD programs was that I thought research was interesting. Maybe over time I kind of like lost track of that, and I was just got so immersed in the rejections. But the kind of initial purpose was for the intellectual kind of experience. Like, I thought the 5 years or 6 years of experience would be fun, and then potentially going into some research related positions, whether it's in academia or industry. So yeah. I mean, there was one time I was really doubting, like, why was I doing a PhD? Then I saw there was this one person, Pedro Lope. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name correctly, but he basically wrote a tweet sometime, and that I happened to read about it, and it was basically saying like he enjoyed his PhD so much, and he got to explore all those interesting sensors and stuff, and he wished all the people who are doing a PhD could enjoy this process as much as he did. So that really changed my mindset of doing a PhD at that time, because it was the toughest. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the sharing. I mean, actually last night I was looking at Ace Lab's website, and I was going through the projects done in your lab, and to be honest, when I first opened the page and I see the resume of all the people inside, I click into each of the PhD resumes. It's like, oh, there's so many like publications. I was a little bit daunted at first when I saw it, but then quickly I realized. So that's why I really agree with what you just said. That is to focus on the process over the results we get. I feel like if you keep on looking at the number of publications, the conference where you publicate, you can never enjoy the work you do. So that's why I thought that, I don't want to look at the background of people. I just want to look at a video of the projects that are actually done there. So what is the actual work being done in lab? So I scroll through, for example, quantifying touch. I think that's your project, right? Where you have like you quantify touch interaction in a much more fine-tuned way, and realize that, and it kind of remind me, because 1 year ago we have a professor, Prof. Wang Yang. I'm not sure if you know, from UIUC. So he visited Singapore, and he asked us like, what is the thing you want to do? And back then I said that I'm really interested in doing interaction technique. So I couldn't even remember it until I saw your last project yesterday. That interaction technique is something that I enjoy doing. And I think when you really like doing something, it means that whether or not you get a publication out of it, or how long it will take before you can publish something like that, you're willing to do it sort of regardless of the cost. So that was a very nice experience going through the videos in your lab website.
I wouldn't agree with regardless of the cost. Definitely take cost into account. Like, don't risk your health for anything.
Of course. And health is the most important part.
Yeah, and don't put the amount of work that will really overwhelm you and make you feel unhappy. So definitely not do that. But yeah, I mean, the insights really come from the dirty work, like when you're working in the weeds. That's the fun part of it. So like, you might feel like you have a really genius idea, but really a good research is from doing those specific tiny bits of stuff, and the real insights from my experience came from those very small, those details.
Just for our audience, do you mind giving our audience a quick introduction of who you are, what do you do, where you are currently?
Okay, hi everyone, I am Nuwan Janaka. I am from National University of Singapore. Currently I am a postdoc researcher at Smart System Institute. I am mainly working on developing wearable intelligent assistants by understanding the different stakeholders, particularly the end users, then the researchers, and also the developers. Then my research is kind of interacting with these applications on different stakeholders. Yeah.
Great. And could you please share with us, are there any specific instances of a person or project or book, a movie, or a piece of art or anything that sort of motivates you and is a consistent source of inspiration and motivation for you in your career as a researcher?
I'm not sure whether a specific book or something. I know like a lot of books that I know. I think for me, I particularly was in when I was like a bit little, I was wanted to know how things work. I think that's my I wouldn't say it's a good way. I'm sure I have broken our fridge in the home, Then after I open it, generally they don't work anymore. Then we had a camera, then it did not work anymore because when you open it, you have like, let's say you have you take out like 5 screws, then you want to hit back, okay, there's 1 screw more. You don't know what to do. Like, I think that is kind of, I'm always curious about things. I have kind of, I don't say it's bad habit. If there is any electronics outside or even the road, I just carry them home and just like tinker them or something. I do remember like one scenario, especially in tsunami, like a lot of electronics were in the sea. So I mean, our homes were affected also. I'm not saying like it's a bad effect. Let's say that ignore the bad effect. Positive effect is there's so many garbage, electronic garbage. Then I would do is I just go there and take them, any of them, then try to make them work. I think I found it's quite interesting, kind of as a hobby. And apart from that, I do remember our electronic. There was a class electronic teacher. I think it's one of the most interesting moment. He carried us to in O level. He carried us to a exhibition. It's the largest electronic largest kind of university exhibition in Sri Lanka. We went to this robotics, see some robots, the competitions. They were really cool. I think that kind of motivated me. Apart from that, I think in terms of the research, right now I'm doing HCI research, but before that I was more like electronics. I'm more interested in electronics. I think in that scenario, I did an internship with Prof. Suranga at that time, like assistant Prof. Suranga at that time in SUTD, Singapore University of Management Technology. Because before that, even in undergrads, I know the electronics, I know the telecommunication, I know a little bit biomedical, but I did not know what is HCI at all, because HCI matters to some people, not most. Actually, like human-computer interaction is a very important field, but it depends on your primary needs. If you say you don't have enough food or something, then you don't care about these higher level needs. The primary needs are like the food, lodging, all these basic needs. Then you go to the higher level. Then you think about like the interaction. It's important. I'm not saying it's important, but based on that, I learned this new field. I think after that, then I think it's about like the more you see new gadget, the more you're interested behind the technology. I think that's kind of constant inspiration. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And may I know, based on your experience, it can be based on your own experience or your observation of someone else's journey. What do you think are some of the common mistakes new researchers commit, some of the pitfalls that they're vulnerable to when they just begin their research journey?
Okay, I would say there are like several mistakes, particularly if you are coming, let me say, like if you are coming from engineering background, your basic idea is you make it work and then you try to make it perfect. That is because you are from engineering background, you want to. But in research, it's not the case. I mean, I'm talking particularly human HCI research, and most of the research are like we are, especially in human computer interaction or other research, we are thinking like new technology. So you are not going to. First thing you have to understand is we never know whether it will be commercialized or not. We don't know that. So the first thing is you show it works in a very preliminary way. For research, that's enough. For engineering, that is it's not acceptable at all, because engineering you have to make it works. It works under different conditions, particularly extreme conditions. So when you going from especially engineering background to research background, I think that this is the first thing. You have to switch your mentality. Otherwise, you will see you try to make it perfect. You don't need this, because in the research, let's say there are multiple research. I'm saying like generic academic research. Industry research is a little bit different. There are some differences. General research is you see something interesting, you find the reasons, then you try to publish the paper. This is the most common pattern. I'm not saying that is the best pattern. I'm saying the most common pattern. Then after that, you assume someone else will make it translate to industry or real application. That is, but it's not your focus. And apart from that, let's say you are a PhD student or master student, you have PhD, you have 4 years. In the 4 years, you have to have at least it depends on your supervisor or the administrative system. You have to finish let's say 3 or 4. It completely depends on the institute and also your supervisor. Then you have to complete them. If you are trying to make it perfect, then that is you can't do. That I would say, then in that case you have to think, maybe first let's finish whatever the immediate goals. I'm not saying this is the best practice. I'm saying this is the best way to finish your, first you have an objective, you have to finish your degree, get your degree. Then later, like then if you are more interested, I would say you can pursue like academic career. Then if you are like, say if you are assistant or associate professor, then you can ignore all the things. Then you can do like more details like long-term analysis or more fundamental questions. That is one mistake. Don't try to make things perfect. Try to make things work and identify what are the reasons. Then try to justify using some theories. That's one is common. The other thing is sometimes you get stuck. Then you try to think. Then most times you are stuck like forever. Then you are like procrastination. It's very common thing. You procrastinate because you don't know what to do. That is the problem. I think in those scenarios, the best way is you can ask your supervisor or someone else, then get feedback and get out of that like procrastination state. Because the more you stay in that stage, the more you procrastinate. Then it's not good for you in the long run at all. Then another thing is if you are working with some senior, that would be a bit not bit. I would say it's a lot of helpful because I work with some seniors. Then when you are stuck, you can always ask senior because sometimes you ask your supervisor, then supervisor is providing very high level knowledge, sometimes more like depending on the supervisor, some provide maybe like very like abstract instructions, maybe you don't know make it how to concrete it. Then you need someone help in the middle to make you help to like identify it and make it concrete ideas, then execute, get some results, then again turn back from concrete to abstract concept. That you need to have. I think that is one thing. If you can get help, that is also fine. The other most important thing is getting a paper rejected is very normal. Like, I don't know, for my first paper, it's still not published. It was rejected around 5 times. Then later I decided, okay, submit to archive, then go along with it. Then yeah, I mean, it's happened because sometimes it's not your research is bad. It's just sometimes the timing is not good enough. Because the most important is selecting the right topic and like at the right time. If you are too early, maybe the community does not think that is valuable, then it's not good. If you start something very trendy, maybe the trend will be gone like next 2 or 3 years, then you don't have anything to topic, anything. So I think if you think a problem, first thing you have to be motivated of the problem. The other thing is try to think a little bit fundamental aspect. If it is human-computer interaction, then human is the most important part of the thing. Whatever related important to the human, it will be valuable in next, I don't know, 100 years or something. Because I think yesterday I saw something, I think in the keynote, like, I think I forget who mentioned, yeah, people don't evolve so fast. People evaluation is so slow compared to the technology evaluation. Yeah. I think these are some of the points.
Definitely agree with that. And I know that even though you didn't say it because of this, but still, I for those of you watching, I'm really appreciative of Nuwan, who helped me with my first publication. So he's the middleman between my prof and my project, giving me like concrete step-to-step plans to sort of reach the abstract goal that the prof has drawn out for me. So thank you, Nuwan, for all the tips and the guidance throughout my journey. And yeah, let's switch gear and talk about something else. So as a researcher, do you believe in the idea of work-life balance? And if yes, what is your go-to strategy to achieve a balance between the two?
Let me say I agree kind of work-life balance, but I don't think the first thing is this is my personal opinion, you can't separate work and life. That is the first thing I understand. There is a balance, but it's not like you treat completely separate. Okay, you do this. No, that is not like that. I don't think that will work in long run also, because it depends on, sometimes you have to prioritize. Sometimes the life is more important, then in that case you prioritize life at that certain period of time. Sometimes, let's say if you have a deadline, let's say you want to submit anyway for this conference or journal, then you have to prioritize the work. That is the overall thing. Then apart from that, the most important thing, I completely agree, you have to allocate certain times for yourself, or particularly for life. It can be anything. For me, I watch anime, or I watch book reading novels of particularly fiction. So I just every Saturday or Sunday, one day I go and hike or just sightseeing, right? That is the most important thing. I would say particularly you have to care about not part of work-life balance, but in the sense you have to think research is very mental demanding and it can be very frustrating. So you have to think about the mental health, you have to consider the physical health, then you have to consider the social health. With mental is, you can do any research if you are mentally well, but the problem is research is not going always as you expect. If you think all the research are going you expect, you are not doing research. Because I'm not saying you're not doing research, I'm saying like research is you go to unknown, then you have this hypothesis. Sometimes the hypothesis work if you are lucky, and also if you have very theoretical foundation, but most time it's not the case, it's opposite. Then you have frustration, then you have to balance this. The best way to balance this mental like stress, like sometimes you have a lot of stress as a researcher, then you have to do physical exercise. That's I believe. Like for me, I do running. Yeah, you have to find like what is the way to reduce your stress. For me, I think I realized running very helpful for me. Then if you have to also make it a habit, so you do like regularly, maybe it's 3 times a week or whatever the period for you. Or I'm not saying it's running, it can be anything for you, whatever is most suitable to you. Most important thing, I think, the first years of someone, first identify this one. Then the other part is the social connection, because people, as computer scientist or computer research, you can do research most of the time alone. I'm not saying like always you have to do alone, but most times you have to implement yourself, right? You have to do most times like test the systems, do pilot yourself. That is the reality. But at the same time, you need like some social aspect. Maybe it can be like you call with your family member or something. So yeah, you kind of temporarily go from this personal space to more like social space. They are different spaces. They know, okay, you are not sure, then you want to get some inspiration, then you attended to talk. Then I would say you have to balance this like physical, mental and social like kind of life or health or whatever things. And at the same time, okay, it depends on your background. You have to consider the other most important fact is the finance aspect. I mean, it's like you may get full funded or you may be paying yourself. Then if you get that additional pressure, let's say finance or something, that can be, it's too much work for you. In that case, you have to think of how to overcome this also. Because life is like, as undergrads, maybe most undergrads will live from somehow get support from parents, but after undergraduates, it's mostly you are living your own life. So you have all this. You have to try to balance all of this aspect. Yeah, I definitely say you have to have a life. If you don't have life, then you don't have work. That's the first thing. But sometimes they are intervened. So you need to like decide like at what time you take more priority. What time I would say taking priority on the life is important, but sometimes you have to take the priority of the work. But always keep some time to yourself to make sure you enjoy the life. Because if you are like say too depressed, or you are like, we call them burnout, due to like sometimes we burn out. Even for myself, I burn out because if I do like straight like 2 days or continuously research or something, next day even if I sleep, I can't recover quickly. So you have to have some mechanism, either physical or digital, to remove this burnout. Otherwise you are not productive, because otherwise it affects like all the actions you are doing next. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Like, I feel like it's good to, when it comes to this idea of balance, it's good to preempt when you're going to burn out and prevent the burnout, rather than when you burn out and you recharge for a long time.
Yeah.
I feel like if I burn out then I recharge, you won't recover in time. It
Yeah.
will take way longer than expected for you to actually feel energized and want to do the work again.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing is, most important, I think I forget to mention, always plan things, because PhD is also like, if you know like what you are going to do next, if you can plan the studies, if you manage your time well, it will work out. Because PhD is not like you get a publication, you are done. No, it's not like that. It's the process. You think of a different way, you try to think problem from a different angle. Yeah, maybe the publication is just one outcome, it's not the final outcome. The most important thing is the process. So you go to this, like you get, if you're lucky, first time you get paper published. If you're not that lucky, or it's not just luck, it's depend on how you like conduct the studies, rigorousness, writing, a lot of things. But one factor is also luck. Then you have to make sure you trust the process, not the final whatever the outcome, immediate outcome like paper or not. Yeah.
Thank you. And for the next, okay, we're at 16 minutes. For the next question, can I ask you if there's one tip you would give to researchers for just starting their research career, what is that one tip you will share with them?
I would say, sorry, what type of researchers? Are you talking about PhD students? Are you talking master students? Are you talking industry research or?
Any student. It could, because I would imagine there'll be
Okay.
audiences of different backgrounds, but they all want to do research, right? So yeah, what is the one tip you provide with?
I would say the most common tip: do research on something you find interesting and you think it has a value. Because if you have like high motivation to do something, whatever you like, then you will, whatever the difficulties comes, you will try to continue the work. If it is not what something you like, or if you feel okay, this is not work, this is you are not passionate about, then I would say yeah, it's not maybe the best direction. Try something you like and you find valuable. It does not need to be value for anyone. It should be at least you should see the value to yourself. Because if you are not convinced it's value to yourself, how can you convince others it's useful, right? Because you at the end, if you want to get publication, you have to convince the reviewers, okay, this is useful and this has value. If you are like industry researcher, if you want to sell this product to any consumer or customer, you have to show the value. Yeah. So think what is the value for you, and then I think yeah, if you are passionate, then it will be useful to the other, whoever the end user. I'm not sure who the end user, but it can be anyone. It can be another researcher, it can be a customer or consumer.
With that, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming to this interview. Tilman, thank you so much for agreeing to come to this interview. Do you mind giving our audience a quick introduction of your work?
Sure.
And where do you work? Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. My name is Tilman Dingler. I'm an associate professor at TU Delft in the Netherlands. My general field is human-computer interaction, ubiquitous computing, focusing recently on cognitive biases, how to detect them, how to mitigate them, the role they play in the interaction with computing systems, and how they deceive us sometimes into making suboptimal decisions. So we're using biophysical sensors to detect occurrence, understand the context in which they occur, and also what type of design features might lead to certain occurrences.
Great. Do you mind sharing with us one particular enjoyable moment in your research career, and why does that make it so special for you?
There's too many, I guess, to
pick one of
count
them?
for this interview. My enjoyable moments. In terms of, I think one of the most enjoyable occurrences in an educator's life is when their students graduate, especially the first PhD students. So accompanying them on their journey, their learning adventure, and also introducing them into the community that you see around them and seeing them growing up is a very deeply pleasurable experience. I would say to witness them grow up. So that's, I think, something that occurs frequently, or not frequently, but kind of like once in a while. That is definitely one of the highlights in my career. And then research-wise, I mean, whatever study we do, whatever insights we gain, whether they are what we expect or what we don't, I think it's fascinating to go through that process, and whether you have results where you're like, oh great, we can publish this is something insightful and has implications, yay. But even if that doesn't happen, it's usually how fascinating, right? Why didn't it work? Why does our manipulation maybe, or the idea being flawed? So seeing results, even in the non-results, is I think a very exciting thing and shouldn't be feared.
Thank you for sharing. And do you mind sharing with us one of the pitfalls that you observe that beginner researchers make very often? One of the common mistakes made by new researchers that you've observed in your career as an educator?
I spend a lot of time, I think, calming people down. I think especially these days, people are very anxious when they look around of how much is happening, how much research is being published, how much good research is being published. And they tend to look outwards sometimes good if it's for inspiration, but it can also be very intimidating. Right? We have some very productive members in the community, but we also have just a large number of people putting a lot of work out there. And that can be intimidating, especially for young researchers who are still finding their feet and slowly getting the hang of designing or finding their research, designing experiments, and just writing up and publishing their work. So one thing I was telling them is just take a step back, enjoy, and the only person you should focus on is you and yourself and your research. And the only person you should be comparing yourself is really you, who you were a year ago, right? So if you just start out, that's great. You've got all these possibilities and interesting questions to generate and go after. And then in a year's time, look how far you've gotten. That's what you should be looking at. So don't mind so much what other people do. If it's for inspiration, great. If it's to compare yourself, probably not a good idea.
I couldn't agree more. What you said really it resonates with me very deeply. This is my 4th year in my undergrad life, and I feel like all the time at the end of one academic year, when I look back, I can always feel like I've become at least more mature. I'm better at handling my own emotions. I'm more mature as an academic researcher, as a student, or just simply as a person. Whenever I look back to the prior academic year, so couldn't agree more with what you just shared. And last but not least, do you mind sharing with us one? Because in this video, I would also like to share with the students the work-life balance of the research. I don't want them to feel like research is something where you just put on a code, you're spending all day in the lab and working, So do you mind sharing with us some of the leisures or some of the unexpected fun moments in your research journey?
Right.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it already. You throughout your professional career, you actually grow in multiple dimensions, right? Professionally, but also as a person. So separating your professional life from your private growth is close to impossible, right? Especially when we look at large or larger time frames, such as years and entire programs. So the development always takes place on multiple levels, right? You learn the hard skills, you learn to make new relationships, you grow as a person, you mature, right? And all these things happen in parallel somehow. And I think it's important to find an environment where you make progress in all these, right? Even if you kind of prioritize your professional life, right? You can't really put your private life on hold, right? So I think there's a few things that you kind of figure out throughout your undergrad, your graduate studies, and thereafter, and that is really like who do you want to be, right? What kind of life do you want to lead? And your profession is just one aspect of that, right? And maybe it's the most important as you think, but I think as time goes by, you kind of like realize you're really putting together this bigger puzzle, right? Of who are you, who you want to be, what kind of life do you want to lead, what kind of career do you want to have, what kind of partner, do you want a family, and all these really important questions, right, are being answered over the course of several years, really. But it's a really important period in your life to do that. And for me, I started out my PhD journey in 2012. But it was very much driven by who do you want to spend time with, in which kind of environment, what kind of people, and can I also do the things that I enjoy doing. Right? So on a personal level, that was a lot of sports, especially on the water. I love kite surfing, I love sailing, I love to be outdoors, and you can see that in kind of my postgraduate life. I then graduated in University of Stuttgart and immediately basically moved to Cape Town, South Africa for a few months. Started my postdoc there, and then just mainly motivated, by the interest or drive to go through other cultures and experience them, but also combine that with my passion for the ocean, which then also led me to Japan, where I spent a year, and then eventually here to Melbourne, to Australia.
So the water sports here in Melbourne is a huge draw factor for you to come.
Huge, yeah. And then this Melbourne was then my first faculty position, and
congratulations.
Oh, this was 7 years ago, but yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
Sorry for the late congratulations, but still congratulations.
Yeah. But yeah, what led me here was the combination of, is this a place I can see myself growing as a person, living, also for my partner. And eventually we found that combination that worked really, really well. Well, now I'm in the Netherlands, which was also a combination of very personal and professional kind of development. But as you can see, again, Netherlands, access to the North Sea, but also access to excellent students in the center of Europe. So kind of combining the two.
Yeah, my name is Jacob Wobbrock, and I am a professor at the University of Washington in Seattle, Washington, which is Washington State, not to be confused with Washington, D.C., which is on the opposite coast of the United States. And so I am in the information school at the University of Washington, and I'm also in the computer science department there with a courtesy appointment. And I do research in human-computer interaction. I focus a lot on accessibility research for people with disabilities, as well as in use cases that are impairing. Hands busy, eyes busy, attention, distraction, that kind of stuff. I also have done a lot of work in my career in mobile user interface design and mobile technology, as well as input and interaction techniques, pointing, gesture, touch, voice, those kinds, eye tracking, all the ways that we do input. So that's kind of an overview of my broad area.
Thank you. All right. And okay, for the next question, can we ask you to share some of the memorable moments in your research journey as a researcher? They can be either work-related or non-work-related.
Sure. I mean, there's lots of milestones that you'll encounter if you go on a research career path, just like there are in other career paths as well, of course. But in a research career path, there's the milestone of graduating from undergraduate, which I understand a lot of the students listening to this are headed towards. Congratulations for those of you about to graduate. I did do a master's degree as well. I didn't know I wanted to do research as a career. I thought I'd be a practitioner, so I did a master's in computer science. I went to Stanford University for my undergrad and master's. Then I worked in Silicon Valley for a few years, and then I went back and got my PhD at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh in human-computer interaction. And so my journey kind of unfolded over time. I didn't have all of that planned out. It sort of seems coherent after the fact, but at the time it wasn't so coherent. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. In industry, I worked as a developer, mostly for user interfaces. So I was kind of a design engineer where I design user interfaces and then develop them and then user test them, kind of the whole HCI process. And then it was really in my PhD that I decided that I liked research, but it's not always a straight line. So even at the end of my first year of my PhD program, I still wasn't sure I wanted to actually finish my PhD and do a research career. I thought I might quit, and things weren't going badly, but I just didn't know exactly if it was for me. So I remember I signed up and studied for and took the LSAT, which is the test to become a lawyer. And I thought maybe I wanted to do patent law. And I did okay on the test, but by the time I got my results, I was enjoying research more, and I was kind of figuring it out more. But it took a year or two to kind of really find my stride. And so for those of you starting research, it's not always a straight line, and that's okay. If it were straightforward, it probably isn't really research, because research by definition is open-ended and ambiguous and challenging, and sometimes you have to kind of go sideways in order to go forward. So it's okay if you have some doubts along the way. That's not something to worry too much about. Don't have too many doubts about your doubts. Just embrace them and keep after it.
I'm really intrigued by what you shared just now regarding how your research career is not a straight line. Mm-hmm. So you wasn't sure you want to do it at the start, but later out during your PhD journey, you figure out this is something you might want to do for life. Mm-hmm. So may I probe further? Is there like a specific instance, a specific person, a book, a project that sort of convinced you that research is something you want to do for life, or does it just slowly catch up with you? Like, how did it develop?
Yeah, I would say more of a project. I had been working mostly on what my advisor had asked me to work on in my first year, which makes sense because I came in without a real strong idea of what research was or what I wanted to do in my research time as a PhD student. So naturally, as my advisor, he's going to give me some projects, and they were kind of researchy, but they were kind of more development, kind of programming projects as well. And so, but they weren't mine, you know, like they were his, and that was okay. But I didn't feel a whole lot of attachment to them, and I didn't feel a whole lot of ownership over, like intellectual ownership. And so I think what changed is I began to grow it out of what he'd been giving me and more into new ideas that were my own. And he was always there kind of guiding and helping, but they became more of my own ideas. And I think that's a pretty common pattern where students start, and in their first year, maybe even their second year, they're working more on projects that are already underway or what their advisors have already kind of defined. And that's an okay way to start, but I think for me, it got more exciting when I was able to generate my own ideas and start pursuing things that I had more passion about, that I was choosing. And every PhD student has to make that transition at some point, right? Because you have to have ultimately a dissertation that's your own, you know, and that you've contributed something to the field. So but that transition can be a little uncomfortable, and it can take some time to kind of figure out what that's like, I think.
I see. Thank you for sharing. And next up, could you please share some of the common mistakes or pitfalls you see new researchers, let it be undergraduate researchers or master PhD, what are some of the common pitfalls that they fall into when they're just beginning their research career?
Yeah, I'll focus on two. One is that they don't want to start a project unless they think it's the biggest, most important deal that's ever been done. It's common that there's this, like, I think a perception of doing these grandiose projects that are going to be equal to the most important research they've ever read that has inspired them. And the reality is, you know, most projects aren't so grandiose, right? A lot of papers that even get published and are good never really do much. They don't get cited too much, and they don't kind of make that much of a difference. And then there are the projects that do break through, but even when you're doing those, you don't always know that they're going to be a big deal. It's a lot of hindsight, I think, when you look back and say, oh, that turns out to have been important, you know? So we do our best and we try to work on important things, but you can't always predict what's going to sort of stick and make a difference. And so you just have to do the best job with projects that you think are important at the time. But I think students need to let go of trying to be a Nobel Prize winner or a Turing Award winner, you know, in their first paper. Like, just do some small, focused piece of work and do it well. Learn the skills of research, sort of learn the trade, if we want to say that. And, you know, eventually maybe one day the Turing Award will come, but it's not going to have to be the first thing you do. And not every paper is going to be your next attempt at a Turing Award or a Nobel Prize. So that's one thing. And I think related to that, the second piece of advice I'd give is focus on a narrow piece of work and do it really well, rather than trying to do too much in one project or too much in one paper. Because the papers that try to do that, they try to do a lot of things, usually not that well. And it's okay to be narrow. I think, in fact, on a given project, you know, to make a high quality research contribution, I think requires a kind of focused definition of what you're working on. And if it's too kind of ambiguous or vague or just sort of broad but not really scoped well, then I think it's very hard to get traction on a problem or project. So don't try to win a Turing Award on every paper, and don't obsess about that concern, and don't be overly broad and vague. Be narrow, focused, well scoped, and just do things well that way. And then over time, that approach, I think, pays off.
Okay, thank you for the sharing again. And may I ask, is there like a figure or book or project that is not yours that you think has provided you with a huge source of motivation and inspiration in your research journey?
Yeah.
Or it can be a poem or.
No, right. Yeah. There's a few things actually. I'm not sure there's just kind of one. Early in my career when I was a practitioner, I was really inspired by usability engineering back in the 90s when that was not an accepted engineering discipline really, and usability was kind of considered maybe not worth it, and companies were barely investing in it. So Jacob Nielsen's work, usability engineering, usability inspection methods, those are books that are foundational, and I think they're less researchy and more practitioner focused, but they really showed me the value of human-centered design and work. On the technical side of HCI, I always love the Tangible Bits work by Hiroshi Ishii at the MIT Media Lab. That's inspiring as a way of really envisioning a different kind of future. Pierre Wellner's Digital Desk paper, I think was 92 maybe, I always thought was a really nice envisionment of the future. There's a great video that goes along with that as well. On the technical side, I think those are good demonstrations of, showing new possible futures, I think is a way of thinking about that kind of work. There's no user studies, there's no statistical tests or p-values. It's not that kind of work, right? And then for more of my kind of experimental psychology and scientific side that I've done a lot with, a lot of the papers by Scott McKenzie from Canada, York University, I think, is where he's at or was at. He did a lot with Fitts law and pointing and text entry, just real fundamental interaction stuff, but analyzed it in a very scientific, rigorous way with proper statistics and the science of interaction. And I would say that works kind of based on and builds on the foundational work by Cardmoran and Newell in the psychology of human-computer interaction, where the kind of early models of interaction and thought are developed. So I think that's a very kind of, so we have a kind of tripod, right? We have the sort of usability, user research side. We have, which kind of derives from social science. We have the kind of science of interaction, which is behavioral science and cognitive science. And then we have the engineering prototypes envisioning the future. And I think that's a lot of what HCI is about, is kind of bringing those things together. So I find inspiration kind of in those different parts of the tripod.
Right. Thank you for sharing. And okay, maybe just one last question.
Sure.
So first of all, do you believe in work-life balance as a researcher? And if yes, what are your go-to method to strive a balance between work and rest?
Yeah, I mean, we have to. If you lose your health because you are not achieving a kind of balance, then you even from just a purely productivity argument standpoint, you're not going to be very productive. So even if you want to be, even if a person would say, no, I don't believe in work-life balance, I'm not sure who might say that, but maybe some people secretly believe that, or even have the courage to say that. Even if they didn't believe in it, though, they'd still have to act in a way that would preserve their health, or they're not going to be able to champion the principle of maximum productivity, right? So there is no maximum productivity without a work-life balance, because you have to have that to be healthy, not just physically, but kind of mentally and emotionally, spiritually, and so on. So much of life matters outside our work, family, relationships, friends, activities, enjoyment of this amazing planet that we all share. And so, life isn't a whole lot worth living, I think, without those things. So I think we have to keep our work in perspective and, do a good job when we're working, but then lay it aside and remember that there are a lot of other important things in life as well.
I see. Do you mind sharing with us some of your own method as
striking a balance between work and activity?
Yeah, it is easier said than done, of course, but
Yeah, I've heard you have some fun activities during your stay in Australia thus far.
yeah, that's true. I was able to come here for this conference, MobileHCI, but stayed for a couple weeks, or got here a couple weeks beforehand to explore the area and visit some family. Yeah, I think it does change some over your career stages. You know, when I was a doctoral student, probably my work-life balance wasn't quite as good because I was on a kind of limited time frame and I was chasing a goal that I had. It wasn't completely lopsided, but it wasn't entirely as good. I think as you go through different career stages, it gets easier or harder depending what you're doing to strike that balance. So I think it's okay to recognize there's a season in life for that balance to shift around a little bit, but it should never be all or nothing. You know, it should never be 100% and 0%. But if it fluctuates from 60-40 and 70-30 and 50-50, you know, those kinds of fluctuations I think are okay, as long as we're kind of aware that it's happening and we don't let it get out of hand.
So maybe for our audience, do you mind quickly introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, where do you study, and what is your work?
Sure. So I'm Masaki Kuribayashi from Waseda University in Japan, and my work mainly focuses on accessibility, navigating blind people. I use smartphones or maybe mobile robots to navigate blind users to their specific locations, maybe telling information about the surrounding environment. Sure.
Okay, yeah, because I'll put it closer to you, but I don't want to put it too close, otherwise it would look weird. But appreciate if you can just raise the volume a little bit.
Sure.
Okay, so if we can just start over, just a quick introduction, please.
Yeah, sure. I'm Masaki Kuribayashi from Waseda University. I'm a PhD student, and I work on accessibility, navigating blind people. So I make these systems that navigate blind people to destinations using smartphones and mobile robots. I help them avoid obstacles or even grasp around environments, what's going on or what's there, those kind of things. And I also try to make those smartphones and robots publicly available by removing kind of prior information we have to give to those systems so that they can operate in various environments. That's what I do.
Great, thanks for sharing. So, do you mind sharing with us one particular experience in your research journey that really makes you feel special and memorable that you can still clearly remember to date?
Yes. So it's my first research I conducted when I was my bachelor's, when I was a bachelor student. And before doing the research, I was actually majoring theoretical physics in my university. So, but then when I was in my senior grade, I decided to shift to HCI research. But at that time, I didn't really, have familiar blind people around me. I didn't know anyone. I just thought it would be a great experience for me to learn about engineering and something different from theoretical physics. But in this field, you build a system and then you have blind people test the system and then you write a paper. And in this phase of blind people testing your system, I really recognize a lot of people appreciating what you do. Saying, hey Masaki, I really want this application in this app store. What is going to be available? And those kind of stuff. And that appreciation really motivated me to continue my research. I really thought, it was so different from what I have been doing, just theoretical physics, reading a lot of books, and it's really fun. But at the same time, getting appreciated is really, I can't describe it in my words, but nice experience I had, and that's why I am still passionate to do this field of research. Yes.
So really it's about the social impact, that the sort of positive impact your research work has generated to the people who need it the most, that really kind of motivates you to do your research.
Yes. Some people can be harsh, say that because this is HCI research. People say, "Hey, this system's useless," but at the same time, there's a lot of people that really are supportive to you, really participate in this research because they really want to make their lives better, so that they appreciate technology, they appreciate their lives, they appreciate researchers. So yeah, the actual appreciation, the recognition you get from the target users, I really feel that's more valuable than those recognition get among researchers. So yeah, I feel like I'm working for a social impact. I really do. That's very nice.
And regarding something you mentioned just now, which I found really interesting, that is, sometimes people can be very harsh towards you.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any specific encounter? It can be a piece of critique, it can be a particular failure, or maybe do you remember any particular setback that that had a profound impact on you, and how do you eventually sort of resolve and overcome that difficulty in your research career?
Nice. So this one blind participant, well, she was really supportive, but at the same time, she really criticized a lot of researchers, mentioning that a lot of researchers conduct user study because to write a paper. So they are doing a full research, not for blind people. So that word really kind of struck me, I was quite worried if I was one of them. But I think, the important thing is that the motivation of any work should emerge from their needs, not from how we want to make this social life more inclusive, but how they want to make this world inclusive, how we can collaborate with them, so we have to interact with them, we have to talk with them in order to not do research for research, but do research for blind people. So yeah, so my professor is blind as well, so I really often discuss with her what's the problem she has and how we can potentially solve it. So having a target user close to you, it can be a friend. So I also have a blind friend, so I also talk with her, talk with the professor. Maybe after a user interview, a user study, when they have time, maybe help them with a little discussion, so that the next direction you're thinking of is not wrong. Yes.
Right. Thank you for sharing. And I'm just wondering, are there any particular instance, let it be a book, a person, or maybe a piece of paper you read, that sort of motivated you to begin your research journey, or rather confirm this path you've chosen for yourself as a HCI researcher? That is a huge source of inspiration to you could say. It can be a book, a movie.
Okay, I have to say that there's no particular resource I watched or read in order to continue my passion. You never learn what people are what challenges blind people are facing from these movies or papers. You have to feel it, and in order to feel it, you have to meet them and talk to them. So I'm very sorry I can't provide you with any reference, but it's the best way to discuss with them and see that how challenging it is for them to navigate just even a straight corridor. Yes.
I see. Okay, and maybe for the last question, did you, when you first started you mentioned just now, right, at the start you were actually learning theoretical physics.
Yeah.
Then you sort of transitioned into a more CS, HCI related, major. So may I know that, did you, because I could understand, I could see a link between the two, theoretical physics. I mean, you're of course doing it for research, right? and HCI research is what you're doing now. So, did you have an innate, or are you born with like a passion or a mission, a goal you want to reach that is research related, or did you come, do you feel like it's through a process of discovery that you realize that research is something you want to know? So are you born with something like that? Do you know what you want to do at the start, or is it something you figure out halfway, in your research or in your student journey?
I have to say I figured it out. When I was a theoretical PhD student, theoretical physics student, I was just, learning every day. I just thought these equations are really fun to deal with. But at the same time, one time I stopped. I didn't stop, but there was an opportunity for me to pursue a new field, and I tried it. And to be honest, when I first tried it, my motivation was to get some experience, make myself better. I didn't think anything about people with disabilities. But yes, after I get this word of appreciation from target use, blind people, I just figured out that this is what I really want to do, and it's what I have to do. Yeah. I don't think much people will be interested in doing accessibility. I've seen a lot of students, I've talked to a lot of people, talk about how great accessibility research is. Sadly, I only found 2 students who would work with me to do this, continue my passion. So, yeah, it's not a research field that everyone wants to do, but I do believe that through my research journey, I figured out that I want to do this and I have to do this. Yeah.
Do you mind telling us a little bit more about this sense of obligation you feel to do this research, especially for the blind community?
You mean the obligation?
Because just now you mentioned that after getting the recognition from the blind community, you feel like you have to do it, right?
Yes.
So do you mind telling us, how do you think this comes about?
Well, it's not a difficult thing. The first thing is that society talks a lot about inclusivity, diversity, but how many people, how many facilities does actually do the accessibility stuff? Is this building really accessible? Is the airport really accessible? Is people talking about diversity really accessible? We have to make it into action, not only talk about it. And to be honest, from my perspective, I don't really see people really doing accessibility. People talk about it.
Give maybe a short tip to all the undergraduate researchers who are just beginning. Maybe around 1 minute, a quick one. So what kind of things would you say, to them?
Try a lot of things and find what you're passionate about. I started off with theoretical physics major, and during that time I also did machine learning and those other stuff. But in the end, I tried accessibility, and if I found out that accessibility is what I wanted to do. So I guess it's not easy to find out what you're passionate about. So try a lot of things and then find your passion.
Just for the sake of our audience, do you mind introducing yourself again and telling us what you work on, where do you work, and where you're from?
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm very happy to be here. My name is Mohammad Hajarian. I'm a university postdoctoral researcher at University Carlos III de Madrid. My field of study is human-computer interaction, gamification, user engagement, user acquisition, and of course social networking. And I am originally from Iran, and I am very interested on HCI concept, and I'm very happy to be here today with you. Yeah, and if you want, I can also describe my current postdoctoral research title, which is a RoseNap project, a reputation metric and method for gamifying and regulating user behavior. Our purpose is to regulate user behavior in social media using gamification to prevent problems like online hostility, misogyny, fake news, misinformation, and problems like that. Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing. So do you mind sharing with us in your research journey, what is the what is one of the mistakes that you made early on in your research career that when you look back, you wish you could have avoided? And what kind of advice would you give other people to avoid or overcome such difficulties?
Yeah, so very good question. I think we shouldn't think that we did mistake. Everything we do, even if it looks like a mistake, it's something that we learn from. So in a research, I personally don't think there is a mistake. There is always learning. Even if it is a mistake, it's a learning process. So the best advice I can give is don't worry about anything. Don't worry about doing mistake. Don't worry about your supervisors. Don't worry about the conferences or any problems that you might see look so serious, because these are not really serious. And I saw many times that the directions sometimes are wrong there, and the results might not be very good, but you learn from them. And the most important thing is trusting yourself and trusting what you are doing, and just learning. Keep learning and being open to learn new things. So there is no mistake, I think. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know any mistake.
No worry about it. Yeah, I like your answer. Take
Thank
everything
you.
as a learning experience.
Yes.
So, then do you mind sharing with me what are some greatest source of joy that you find in your research experience?
Ooh, yeah. Greatest joy, I think, is the impact that you can have. Impact not scientifically, because science goes its own way, but impact on human life and impact in the real human life. So when you see your work is really impacting other people in their daily lives, or it can, for example, prevent some problems or help them to have a better life, that's a real joy. So I think it's the impact of our research that can make us be happy or joy.
Do you have any specific example of the impact your work or the work of our colleagues has created impact for the society or the people around you?
Yes, for example, I did several works. For example, one of them that was not very acknowledged was the fuzzy-like concept, explicit fuzzy-like concept that we introduced several years ago. I think it was 2015, and it was like a like button to show how much you like, and move the bar left and right to show how much you like it. And after publishing it in Human Behavior Journal, few months or maybe 1 year later, we saw that Facebook got that concept in their story section. So now when you go to the stories, you move your hand and you show how much you are interested in a story. I'm sure you saw that on Instagram. And another thing is, for example, incel movements, involuntary celibates movements. You had it recently in Sydney. Here we are in Australia, so it was in Sydney recently. And for example, it's people who have a special community on the internet, and they join misogyny tags, hater, and because of that, they make some problems in the society. So working on these people and preventing these problems was one of my goals, and what I did was not only detecting this kind of people, but preventing these problems to happen. So we try to take some little steps to make some impact and really enjoy your research.
Indeed. And okay, the next question I want to ask you is, are there any specific instances that you can remember, let it be a people, a book, a paper, a project, or even maybe a poem, a movie, that is a great source of inspiration to you in your research journey?
Good question. So, I always love Khayyam concept. Do you know Khayyam? Khayyam, is a very famous Iranian scientist. He lived around 800 years ago. Yeah, the calendar we use today is his innovation. He was astrologist, he was mathematician, he was a poet also. And so when I read his poem, I really enjoy because it's a science poem, a really scientific poem. Yeah, he is really a source of inspiration for me because he always talk about the world and how it will end and how we can cherish the moment and enjoy the moment and shouldn't be just worry about anything because at the end everything will be end. And yeah, that's very inspiring for me. I encourage you to read about Khayyam if you didn't know about him.
By the way, how do you spell that?
Khayyam, Khayy or Y-A-M.
Khayyam. Oh, Khayyam.
Khayyam, yeah.
Khayyam.
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 Yeah.
I'll definitely look it up after our interview.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Take a look at it. The poet has been translated to the English already, and it's very easy for you to understand.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that with me.
many people in the Western country think Khayyam is a mathematician, especially in Spain where I am. When we teach some concepts, people know Khayyam, but they don't know that he is also a poet. His poems are very interesting. So I invite you to read about it so you can get a perfect inspiration for doing your research or anything related to the science.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, the next question I'm gonna ask you is, how do you think doing research has expanded your view on this world? For example, I'm sure as a researcher, you will need to collaborate across culture. That's the theme for this year's MobileHCI is, right, digital So how has your research career as a HCI researcher expanded your worldview?
Yeah, very, very nice question. Very good question. I think when you learn research, you understand that there is no limitation for learning. And you understand that you do not need to go to university, you do not need to go to special classes to learn anything because you already have that tool with yourself. Whether it is a secondary research or primary research, literature review, whatever it is, you can do it yourself and you can learn it. And this is what was before, during the Khayyam time, for example. They do not have a specific science. They were scientists and they learn about all the kind of the science. So I think once you master the research, once you learn the research very well, then you realize that, okay, now I'm a researcher, but for my medicine, I can take a look at the recent research papers on, for example, a specific topic and take a look, is this medicine really working or is there better medicine? So I have many instances that I realize one medicine is better than that doctor prescribed to me. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you can go for different, if you want to make a building, if you want to do something, you can do everything with your research. So there's no limitation for science when you realize and when you master in doing your research. Here, mostly maybe I'm talking about the secondary research, literature review, but primary research can also be useful in this, well, maybe sometimes dangerous if you want to go to the medicine or problems like that, but secondary research like literature review can be very useful when you want to learn something. Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I guess for the last question, maybe can I ask you to give one tip you would give for people who are just beginning their research career?
Good question. One tip. Okay, if you just start your research, I think you have to start with just literature review, secondary research, to learn how doing the research, and just learn how to do the research first before doing the research. And understanding how the research can be done, it's a complex, very, very complex concept. So maybe start by learning about the research and how it is and how it works, and maybe it's even if you spend a lot of time, you cannot understand it very well until you gain a more experience during several years of doing the research. But it's very good to learn the basics before starting the research without knowing what is going on, and later understand. So study well about it, and I'm sure everybody will be successful if they know very well what is the research and how it works and how it can impact your life, your family life, and your friends and other people in the world life.
Hi, do you mind telling us what's your name?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Yongquan Hu, but you can also call me Owen. Here is my name comes the Yongquan, but you know in English, some professor or some others just call me Yongquan. Q is not really like Chuan, so they just call me Yong,
Okay.
Yong on Owen. That's
Okay.
how Owen comes. I'm a third-year PhD student in University of New South Wales, Sydney, advised by Professor Aaron Quigley and Professor Wen Hu. Aaron is the chair of Kai community, and also some invited speakers and some student community of top HCI conference. I'm very honored to work with him. So for now, I'm conducting some HCI related work, research work. Specifically, like I'm doing some visual-based multimodal interface. So generally, I combine some multimodal data, especially the visual modality information, combine them all and process them in the system. The final purpose of this is I try to build a prototype or system to help people understand and interact with the world better. For example, for those low vision or some blind people, they don't have a clear vision, right? So that's why I do the visual-based interface, which will utilize the cameras. So we can use the cameras to help those low vision people navigate or recognize some object in the supermarket, in the school, in the classroom, something like that. It's very useful. Yeah, something like that. That's my research.
I see. Do you mind sharing with us your personal motivation for beginning your work and your career as a researcher?
Yeah, that's really a good question. I actually have a bunch of and a little bit complicated research experience. For example, I did my bachelor and master program in the Chinese mainland, but also I got some exchange experiments in Stanford University and in America and in the University of Maryland. After that, I also got some research experiments in Tsinghua University, and then I'm moving to Australia and conducting the HCI research. So for my personal, I think the biggest motivation for your research or doing something is your passion. Always find something you are really passionate about, really interesting about, but also always keeping thinking how fit your skills to those passionate or interesting topics. What you can do, what you can build, and what the purpose you are building, you are doing, what the effect of your product or your work can benefit to people. Always thinking that. I mean, I know that sounds like a big story, but actually it's very specific, starting from some very small things. For example, I conducting the computer vision during my master program. Computer vision is actually a very huge field, right? So I actually doing the video encryption in that field. So the most important problem for me at that time is how to protect people's privacy and how to protect people not leak their privacy when they are using devices. I always struggling think about that. And with that problem, with that thinking, I got into the Stanford, got an opportunity into Stanford. Then I find that, there are many research methods to protect people's privacy, no matter it's software or hardware. It's very fancy. And then I noticed that not just use the technology to protect people, but also you need to do some like user studies, something like that, because because I have an engineering background, I'm always trying to think about the technology first. But sometimes it's not right. Take an example like iPhone. For our engineer, we're always struggling to think about how to improve the recognition accuracy. For example, the face unlock on the iPhone. But I can definitely say that the unlock technology of iPhone is not the number one in the world. Maybe we actually got some better accuracy from some companies in Chinese mainland. But why they can't create an iPhone, the most popular mobile phone in the world? So I'm always thinking about that. Okay, then I got it. Maybe the user need is the most important, rather than the technical itself. So that's the most valuable things I learned from Stanford, from that course, from some experience. So always try to think about what you can do, the most thing you want to do, what's the most struggling things you can devote in your research, I think, and combine them all, make them into your own story. That's an important thing.
Right. Hi, so may I know what is your name?
I'm Ava Scott. I'm from UCL in London.
Right, nice to see you, Ava. And do you mind sharing with us some of the most memorable moments in your research journey as a researcher?
Okay, well, I'm in my final year of my PhD, so there's been lots of interesting moments. I guess some of the most memorable ones have been collaborating with other groups of universities and other people. So we worked together on a summer school, which we hold in the University of Bremen, and I put together a workshop and taught a load of people about how to use shortcuts on their phone, which is a type of trigger action programming tool, and allowed them to prototype their own well-being interventions. And then, as well as making a load of friends and sharing this skill, I also managed to publish a paper out of that work. So that was a nice way of making friends and getting some productive output as well.
Wonderful. Do you mind also sharing with us what is your personal motivation for joining the research field?
Oh wow. I think I'm a very curious person. I think I always like asking why. I've always done that, probably to an annoying extent when I was a kid. I also really like writing, communicating ideas and convincing people, being convinced. That sort of process of back and forth I've always found really interesting. And then technology in particular I feel like is a really interesting arena for imagining the future and having important debates about the state of the world and what we want it to look like. So I think those are probably the reasons why.
Wonderful. Okay, for the last part, do you mind sharing one tip you would give for undergrad researchers who are looking forward to a potential career in a research area?
Yes, the most important thing as an undergrad looking to go into a PhD, for example, is to find a researcher who you really like to work with. I think the supervisor is probably the most important aspect of a PhD, like being really enthusiastic and having actually a friendship with your supervisor is really important. So go for someone that you connect with, who you feel psychologically safe with to ask questions and to discuss things, talk about your vulnerabilities with them. Yeah, that's way more important than the number of publications they have or their prestige. But yeah, have fun, don't take it too seriously. It's all about playing with ideas and yeah, good luck.
Bye.